Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll get going. How the feedback is. Can you all hear me? Okay. So welcome everybody. This is an RDOS meeting to discuss information presented into assessments obtained by the RDOS regarding the Vintage Views Wastewater and Lakeshore Highlands water systems. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to introduce myself, if you're in the wrong meeting. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Matt Taylor. I'm the Electoral Area Director for Skaha East and Okanagan Falls at the RDOS board. I'll be chairing this meeting. Number of OS staff, and introduce the RDOS representatives. It is our meeting. I understand that there's some eminent individuals in the crowd, and that's great. I'm going to stick with the RDOS people. So we have Ms. Lisa Bloomfield, professional engineer and senior manager with utilities at RDOS. We have Mr. Jim Zaffino, chief admin officer for RDOS. In the background here, we have Danny Francisco, Mr. Danny Francisco, senior manager of information systems for the RDOS. And in the back, we have Mr. Myron Senegan, engineering tech at RDOS. We also have several directors from the RDOS board in attendance, and I'm thankful that they are, because I think it's important for them to see the level of interest within the community. So just quickly wrapping off some of the names that are online or in the room. We have Ms. Helena Conans, Ms. Sabrina Monteith, Ms. Riley Gettins, Mr. George Bush, Mr. Mark Pendergraft, who is also our board chair, Mr. Doug Holmes, Mr. Julius Bloomfield, and Ms. Sue McCordoff. Apologies if I've missed anybody. Oh, yes, and we have Mr. Rick Knodel as well. Rick. Okay, the general agenda is, I'm going to make a few more comments, and then we're going to have a presentation by Ms. Bloomfield. She's going to run through a third-party assessment of the two systems. These are the assessments that were commissioned by RDOS, and she's also going to speak to the financial implications of these assessments. Then we're going to have a Q&A, and we're going to have some closing comments. First off, some housekeeping, washrooms. There's some older folks, older gentlemen in the room, so the washrooms are through that side door there and to your left. Two emergency exits if we need to use them, one at the very back of the room there and the one you came in here. This meeting is being broadcast online, and I believe it's being recorded so that people who aren't able to attend tonight can listen to all this vast knowledge and educate themselves later. As regards questions, I'd like you to hold those to the end. That'll allow Ms. Bloomfield to get through her presentation, and it's conceivable that she may actually address your question during her presentation, but it will ensure that she gets a full wrap on these assessments and gets that out. When you have questions, I'd like you to move to the mic. It's important that people who are online can hear you. Introduce yourself and let us know which of the utilities or both that you're using. If we can't answer the question, we'll come back with answers. We'll post the question online and the answer to the question online. If we don't get to all the questions tonight, and that's possible, you can submit through RDOS Regional Connections. There's a poster on there. You'll see that the Vintage Views and Lakeshore Highlands water systems are there, and you can post your question there. When you're asking your question, please keep it short if you can. Get to the point, and that'll hopefully allow us to get through more questions. Some ground rules, please be respectful. Use the mic. Hard stop at 8 o'clock. We might be able to push that a little bit, but we're going to be drawing the line to it then. I want to recap the meeting purpose. We're trying to inform users of the current status of these two systems, Vintage Views Wastewater and Lakeshore Highlands water systems, and then what is required to bring the systems into compliance, as determined by a third-party assessment. Plus, we are sharing with you the financial implications of those assessments. This meeting is focused on the assessments. We will have subsequent meetings. If we get to that point in the process, we will have subsequent meetings for other things that will be important regarding the timetable for conversion, the process, and maybe your concerns with respect to that process. That's for another day. Some things we can't talk about. The potential sale or terms of sale of the two services from the current provider to the RDOS, and where the RDOS is at in its decision process. It's a work in progress, and we simply can't talk about it now. Please keep in mind, there are at least 4 parties that have to agree for a conversion to take place. There's the current owner. He's asked for this to take place. There's the resident users. They've undertaken a survey, and there's strong support to proceed. There's the RDOS. We've commissioned these assessments, so we're actively working here. And there's the province, who would have to approve any conversion. So we have to take this one step at a time. And tonight's focus is to foster an understanding of the technical content of the assessments and their financial implications upon yourselves. There'll be ample opportunity, and it'll be well publicized for subsequent meetings. I'll leave you with 3 messages. Again, this is a work in progress. Second, the RDOS has not made its decision relative to these systems. And third, to the money. The assessments indicate that approximately $18 million is required to bring the 2 systems into compliance. Clearly, this is a large amount of money. This is a conservative or worst case scenario, however, and the breakdown, including allowances for contingencies, will be discussed tonight. And yes, ultimately, if we get to that point, it's true. The users will be responsible for this amount. But it's also true that the province and the feds could provide grants for these systems. And the amount of those grants would reduce the overall amount that residents are going to be responsible for. And an example, we've seen that happen with Okanagan Falls Irrigation District. The RDOS applied even before the conversion took place, and it did take 2 years, but we were successful in getting a grant. So now I'm going to hand this off to
walk through the presentation.
Your questions to the end. Thank you, Ms. Bloomfield.
Thank you very much, Director Taylor. All right, so I'm here to talk about the engineering and financial assessments that were commissioned by Ecora Engineering. Unfortunately, the gentleman that completed the assessments was not able to be here tonight. So what I've done is I've combined his presentation into my presentation. It's working. Oh, there we go. Okay. So just a brief outline of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm just going to kind of go over the basic acquisition steps. The RDOS has a utility acquisition policy that's dictating the steps that the RDOS follows here. I'm going to talk a bit about the sewer assessment, and then I'm going to go into the water assessment, and then I will talk about the costs involved. Okay. So the acquisition process, there's many steps to it. The very first thing to initiate it is a request to the RDOS to look at the system, and that's been received, and we have proceeding with the engineering and financial assessments, which was kind of the main first step. So we need to understand what the current conditions are and what upgrades would be required. After that, then we start working on all of the other details, the liabilities, the risks, and we look at discussing things with the province and all of the other parties involved. And then we go through the other parts of the process, such as when we would come out and do the assent process and do the bylaws and then work on transition plan. So right now, I'm going to be presenting on the engineering and financial assessments. So this is where we look at the existing infrastructure. We look at all the capital costs that are required to bring the systems up to compliance to meet the current regulatory standards.
Well, I have to finish getting it ready here because I thought I was all ready to go, but we're still.
Hey, Danny, can you mute everybody? Danny, can you mute everybody?
All right, I think they got that, yes. Okay. So we also look at the long-term asset management of it, as well as, the staffing needs for the different systems. Okay, so we start with the Vintage Views wastewater system. All right, so it was designed to service 112 lots. Right now, there's 78 connected up to it, and there's 34 empty lots right now in the Vintage Views sewer service area. Right now, it has a capacity of 65 cubic meters a day because it's only got one module built in it right now. It was designed to have 3 modules, so it was designed to handle the anticipated flow of about 195 cubic meters a day, which would be the full build out. So Ecora did an analysis and looked at what the demand would be based on the typical wastewater that would be generated. And the subdivision servicing bylaw that the RDOS has, bylaw 2000, which was active last year when the assessment was done, has the daily need of every person at 450 liters per capita per day. So using that and the estimated number of people per house, Ecora generated a system design flow of 116 cubic meters a day, which is actually less than what the system was initially designed for. So just as a side note, our subdivision bylaw was recently updated, and our actual new flow is actually 350 liters per capita per day. So can actually increase the number of connections there. All right. So here's kind of an image of kind of showing how different parts of the area were connected into the sewer. The first part to come on was the Apple Court area, which the Apple Court, One Quail Place, and Apple Road area. It comes down by gravity into the wastewater treatment plant there. And then there's 3 areas of Vintage Views that have been built over the years. Phase 1, and it was in about 2002, and then phase 2 and 3 followed over the next decade. So this is a schematic overview that Ecora had put together. It's in the report as well. And it just kind of shows the basic flow of wastewater through the plant. Wastewater comes in by gravity through gravity mains from the area in Apple Drive and Apple Court. And the rest of it, all the all of the wastewater is collected and then treated there. And after it goes through the treatment, it's when it goes out for disposal into the infiltration field, which is on the nearby property. Right now, there is a newer infiltration field that was put in 2019. There is an old one, but that is blocked and no longer in use. but there is a new one that was installed. Next slide. There we go. Okay. So wastewater regulations, there's multiple regulations dictating how sewer systems are run, depending on the size of it. Given the size of this one, it falls under the Environmental Management Act, the municipal wastewater regulation. And right now there is a operating certificate issued for it, but the infiltration gallery, the infiltration field that's currently being used isn't on that registration, which is why it's out of compliance. So re-registration is required for the wastewater system. Process with the province typically takes 2 to 3 years right now to go through that entire registration process. And the one thing that's different with wastewater than it is with water is there's no provincial oversight body for the operations. With water, you have IHA, that is the oversight for operations, whereas wastewater, there isn't an oversight body for operations. So as part of the regulations, the effluent that is discharged into the infiltration field has to meet Class B level. I've got a list of the parameters up there, the BOD, which is kind of the biological oxygen demand, which is kind of the amount of organic materials. The TSS, which is total suspended solids, so the amount of solids left in the effluent. Fecal coliforms and turbidity, nitrogen and phosphorus, those are all different things. Because it's Class B, there isn't a nitrogen or phosphorus level required. But the fecal coliforms are supposed to be under 400, most probable numbers per 100 milliliters. The required monitoring that needs to be done on a treatment plant like this is laid out on the screen there. There's supposed to be measurements for flow twice per week at minimum. There's various samples that have to be done and analysis done every week. There are some things that have to be done twice a month or more infrequently. There's also some things that have to be done that aren't included on here, such as like a metal screen that typically has to be done annually. That's a pretty common thing for wastewater treatment. So in looking at the coliform data, the report did have data from 2021, 2022 that showed a lot of exceedances in the coliform data. This is the 2023 data that I pulled offline from the provincial database. And you can see from that there are still significant exceedances in the amount of coliforms. So this is one of the major concerns with the system, and that additional treatment is definitely required. So what do we need to do to meet discharge standards? We need to add more treatment. ECORA has recommended the addition of membrane filtration to the treatment plant. Disinfection processes are also going to be required because of the level of coliforms and the volume that's being discharged. So some of the other issues with the treatment plant, in addition to just needing additional treatment, is the things I've listed up there. The operations itself has some issues that need addressing. The inlet chamber has various safety issues and a few other challenges. I'm just going to go through some of those in a little bit more detail now. So the operational issues include basically SCADA and communications are kind of first and foremost for the RDOS.
We remotely monitor all of our systems. We're available 24/7 to respond to any emergencies. So having good communications and a SCADA system that monitors this constantly is really important. So this would probably be one of the highest priorities for the RDOS, is to put in a full SCADA control and monitoring system. The system itself, the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system both have to be rated by the Environmental Operator Certification Program, or EOCP. That dictates what level of operators are required in order to operate the collection and the wastewater system. The wastewater system has been done, and I believe it's a level 2, but the collection system has never been actually assessed and rated. So that's one of the things that would need to be done. Record keeping, a lot of the records are very inconsistent, and they found that there wasn't a lot of data for analyzing trends. They were trying to do that during the report, and it was very difficult without a lot of good, consistent data. So the inlet chamber has a few challenges. It's where the raw sewage comes into the treatment plant and begins the process. This is where there's an initial screen to take out some of the larger materials, and then it moves on into the reactor, which is where kind of the treatment takes place. There's inadequate volume in this in order to handle all of the wastewater that comes in. And one of the big things that is missing that was identified is the flow monitoring. It's really important to know what's coming into your plant. So a flow meter is one of the things that is definitely required to be added. And one of the other big things that's missing is mechanical screening and grit removal. Here's some examples of kind of what screenings would be and the mechanical screens. It's an automatic thing that goes, it'll take out some of the larger solids, and there'll be an automatic process to scrape it and clean it off. And then it gets put into a bin where it gets taken out to the landfill. The infiltration field. So there's an image of it. It's just located south of the wastewater treatment plant there. And it's on private land in the ALR. And there is currently an easement in there and an agreement between the private parties involved. But one of the challenges is there isn't easy access for the operators to go and monitor it and to check the various levels, operate valves and such. So, and there was also some damage done to the infiltration field when they changed the crops over to a vineyard in 2022. So there is some unknowns as for the full condition of the infiltration field there as well. So with that location, it is highly likely that additional land would be required in order to fully treat all of the effluent down the road. So one of the other big things is safety. Typically, a wastewater treatment plant is fully fenced to stop any unauthorized access or people coming near the plant to do damage or to get hurt themselves. It's an industry norm, so it would probably be one of the things that we would look after fairly quickly, is to get fencing done. All right, so this is one of the other bunch of safety issues that ECORA identified. In the control room, there is the possibility of having gases from the bioreactor area coming into the building. So there needs to be some sealing done of the building. There's no automated detection system for gases in there. There's the stairs that go down should be covered to prevent ice buildup maybe in the winter. And the biggest thing is the PLC cabinet, which is where all of the electrical equipment is in the same room with the microfilter. It's not a good idea to have your equipment that have wastewater and stuff going through it in the same room with electrical equipment. So it's important to have it in different places. So, and a few other issues that ECORA identified is there's limited room for expansion. It's not a very large footprint up there. And the power for the treatment plant is actually coming overland over top of the vineyard from the nearby farm. So that one of the things that would have to get changed and come from a connection right on Chadwell Place. So the other issue that ECOR identified is that because it's an active plant, construction has to take that into account. So there could be challenges because you can't interrupt it while you're constructing new things and additions. So you have to keep it working. And I know this is one of the other big challenges identified is the inability to hook on new houses to the system right now. Right now, there's 34 lots that are not allowed to have building permits because they cannot connect into the sewer. So we recognize that this is a significant issue, and it is definitely something that we will be working on. All right, so that kind of sums up the end of the sewer. So going into the water system. All right. Okay, so regulations, there's regulations for the water system, just like the sewer system. Water Sustainability Act is the main one, and that's where the water system is issued a CPCN, which is a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. It basically allows them to have a water system to have people connect up to it. And the Comptroller of Water Rights is kind of the overseer of that. The Drinking Water Protection Act is what dictates the quality of water. And that's what IHA does, is they will make sure that it's potable water. There's various requirements that you have to meet in your operating permit, or your permit to operate is what it's called through IHA. And there's usually conditions that you have to meet. So the IHA are the ones, who do enforce the Drinking Water Protection Act. All right, so here's some slides here that I'm just going to walk through the general layout that ECORA has provided to me. So the water starts at the Lakeshore Pump House, where it's chlorinated, chlorine is added, and then it's pumped up from Skaha Lake up to a dedicated main at the Sunnybrook Reservoir. So Sunnybrook Reservoir is up there. So there's also a pump house up at the Sunnybrook Reservoir location, and that sends water up to the Apple Court Reservoir. So the Sunnybrook Reservoir was constructed in 1976, and it's reinforced concrete, and it has a capacity of about 113 cubic meters. So the Apple Reservoir is where it gets pumped to next from the Sunnybrook Pump House. And the Apple Reservoir was constructed in 1989 and has a capacity of about 4 times the amount at 573 cubic meters. So from this location, water flows by gravity into some nearby houses, but it also gets pumped up to some additional houses on the Apple Court. I believe it's 12, yeah, Apple Court Pump House right there. It pumps water up to 12 houses in that area. So water also flows down to the Christie Mountain Pump House, and where it's pumped up to the, where is it? The Christie Mountain Pump House, yep. Draws water up to the Christie Mountain Reservoir, which is the steel tank way up at the top. It's the highest part of the system in elevation. All right. So the water licenses, the water utility has 5 licenses listed, and it has a total capacity of about 2,253 cubic meters a day is what's allowed for the utility. And the calculations that ECORA did on the theoretical demands actually meet up quite well with these water license amounts. All right, so some of the issues that ECORA has identified is the pumping capacities. Several of the pumps, they're not big enough to adequately handle the demands. The Sunnybrook Pump House and the Christie Mountain Pump House both have pumps that are too small. Both of them need upgrading. The ones at the lakeshore itself has adequate pumping capacity, which is really good because that's the source. And the Apple Court Pump House, which pumps up to the 12 houses, is also very, very good with the amount it's needing. So the fire demand, the RDOS bylaw has a specified rate of 60 liters per second for low density residential single family dwellings. So ECORA ran all the calculations and they calculated the system needs about 302 cubic meters of storage for fire protection. And right now, the current flows that come out of the fire hydrants, in some places it's well over the 60 liters per second, but in others it's not sufficient. Around 30 liters per second. Some of this can definitely get fixed with higher pumps, but the big thing will be additional reservoir space. Okay, yeah, the Apple Court as well is only 3 liters per second up there, so the houses up there have to actually have sprinkler systems. All right, so the analysis that ECORA looked at with the reservoir space, the volumes, is they calculated out what the theoretical volume should be, 1,156 cubic meters. When they looked at the fire volume, the balancing volume, which is kind of your day-to-day demands, and then the emergency storage is kind of a combination of extra for the fire or your daily demands to meet the peaks. So in the 4 reservoirs or the 3 reservoirs, there's a deficit. It turns out there's about 220 cubic meters of a deficit in order to meet the theoretical demands, which means that another reservoir is required. Okay, just a little info on the province's drinking water treatment objectives, the 43210. This includes the reduction of viruses, protozoa, requires 2 forms of treatment, and requires low turbidity for the water. The other main part in here as well is that it requires 0 fecal or total coliforms in the drinking water. One of the things that has come up is in the summer months, the system frequently has positive test results for coliforms. It is unknown right now if the chlorine has sufficient contact time in order to adequately treat it before it reaches the first customer. So that would be one of the first things that's recommended to do, is to do a chlorine contact survey study to make sure that there is sufficient contact time. But right now, the system does not meet the 43210 because there is only one form of treatment, and a second one is definitely required. So what's required? A water treatment plant. The ECORA estimates about 2.5 million liters per day water treatment plant is recommended. And in it would have media filtration and UV disinfection, followed by chlorine put out in order to maintain a residual through the whole distribution system. And that's to prevent regrowth of any bacteria or any kind of things that might have slipped through. The key part of a waste or a water treatment plant is acquiring land. Because right now there isn't a location to put a water treatment plant. The water system itself has many cosmetic issues due to its age, but there's also many safety and operational concerns. So ECORA looked at all of the infrastructure and they classified the existing infrastructure as poor to fair. So there's a lot of remedial work and repairs required. Another big thing, just like in the wastewater, is the SCADA and communications. Very important to be able to be notified immediately of any issues that may happen with the water system. The RDOS standards require certain level of SCADA and communications. So this would be an upgrade that would be required. And bring it on to our SCADA system. We have a SCADA system that we can look at all of our water systems, the 10 of them, and the sewer system. We can look at all of them on the one system. So there is some of the controls as well that won't communicate properly with our SCADA, because they're too old or they're the wrong type. So there would be some of those that would be required to be replaced. So there's some other projects that the engineer has identified. At Christie Mountain PRV and Pump House building. There's a significant pile of rocks right beside the Christie Mountain building. There's significant cracking on the building itself. We did not have it structurally assessed at this point, but that's very top of the list to be done. It's a recommendation that should be done very quickly, because we don't know how much damage may have been done from the rocks being put along the side of the building. So the pumping main that goes into the lake and goes up to the Sunnybrook Reservoir is showing its age. It was constructed in 1976 and made of ductile iron. At this point, we don't know the condition of it, but based on the age, we have to look at our asset management and know that this is going to need replacing. So it's one of the top things that would need doing because of the criticality of this infrastructure. If you lose your intake pipe and your main up to the reservoir, you're out of water. So it's a very critical piece of infrastructure. So ECORA added the full replacement of this line into the upgrades necessary. Another one of the issues that ECORA brought up was the access to the Christie Mountain Reservoir. Very difficult to access. So they proposed that we should put in a road up to it because that's the location where they're suggesting that we put in a second reservoir in order to meet the full fire flows. It is the highest in the water system, so it makes sense to put the extra reservoir at the highest point. But in order to do that, we need access for construction as well as regular maintenance. They're at the Sunnybrook Reservoir. ECORA is recommending that we also put in a PRV station. So it will allow for the movement of water between upper and lower areas of the system and help with high demands and fire flows. Generators are also recommended as for each of the pump stations, because when the power goes out, you don't have any water if the generators aren't there. It's something that the RDOS has done in our water systems. Is we've put in backup generators on all of the systems except the newest one that came to the RDOS, the OK Falls one, but that's in the cards for coming along. But generators are certainly a very important thing to have added in. And water meters. The RDOS is starting to move towards universal metering of all the water systems. So it's very beneficial in that it helps conserve water. Everybody seems to reduce their use when they have to pay for it by the cubic meter, as well as it's a great detector for leaks. It's amazing the number of leaks that we found on people's property and their home irrigation that they didn't know about, but the meter will tell you that you have a leak. All right, so that's a bit about the systems. So the costs. So I've got costs for both the sewer and the water systems and what it would require to fix up them all. Now, these are very high amounts. This is kind of worst case scenario is what we have to go with, because we need to know what we have to do if we have to go in and fix everything. So the actual costs will vary depending on labor rates, materials, grants, all sorts of different factors. But at this point, we've got 40% contingency put on the rates because a lot of things are unknown. We don't have all of the details. This is an educated best guess from the engineers based on the assessment of what they know from past work, as well as all the details that we could see and get from the plans of the systems. So the wastewater, the initial capital costs, everything that's required to meet safety, regulatory, and operational standards. What it doesn't include, though, is the costs of an ongoing asset replacement. The pipe network is in decent shape, except for the intake pipe. So it's still got about 50 to 60 years left because it's all PVC. It's good pipe. The lift station itself also has a significant amount of life left, 15 to 20 years. So we asked ECORA to look at what the estimated value of the existing assets are. And this slide shows, based on the different phases that it was constructed in and the wastewater treatment plant, what the current value of the assets would be. And it's roughly about 1.6 million with all of the depreciation to date. So the upgrades required, there's a listing of various things that I walked through in the presentation. It works out to about 6.2 million in required upgrades, so which is a significant amount. When looking at what it would cost homeowners if there was no grants and borrowing was done for 25 years, it would be about $3,800 per year for 25 years per lot, which is a significant amount. It's about $55,000 as a one-time upfront payment, that kind of thing. But this is without any grants. This is going in, having to do it all without any senior government grants. So the water also has the initial capital costs. We have to meet the safety, regulatory, operational standards. Similar things with the pipe network. It's got a decent amount of life left in a lot of the pipes, and the pump stations as well, and the reservoirs. The rest of those are in fair shape, so they might need a little bit of replacement maintenance, but not too bad over the next 10 years. So we also did the current value of the water system based on all the assets there. The estimated construction cost, if we were to go and build it all right now, is about 14 million. So, but the estimated current value is about 5 million when you take off the depreciation. So the upgrades required, there was the list that I went through, walked through all the different deficiencies of the system, and works out to about 13 million in upgrades that are required in order to bring it up to regulatory operational standards. So we figured it would take probably about 7 years in order to get all of it finished. So what does that mean for each parcel? It works out to about $2,800 or $2,900 a year for 25 years. This is without any grant funding, any senior government help. So, or it's about 42,000 per property. So there are operational expenses on top of it because we have to run the systems. The numbers that I just showed you were just the capital for replacing and upgrading the systems. Operational expenses, when I look and compare it to some of our other systems, right now I estimate the wastewater between $1,600 and $2,400, and the water system between $1,000 to $1,500 per year. Those are very high level estimates, and they'll be refined and worked out a little bit more in the future. So basically, just to summarize the main issues, provincial regulations are needed. There's no capital reserves, multiple safety concerns. We found that there's very inconsistent record keeping, and there's major upgrades are being recommended. And this process with these two systems is very complex, and there's a lot of variables and a lot of parties involved. So the issues are being discussed with many different parties, including the province, IHA, the owner, and there's an unknown timeline at this point for a decision from the RDOS board. But all of the information, as we have it available, will be posted on our Regional Connections site. So I'm highly recommending that people get familiar with the site. It's also a great place for all the other major activities going on in the RDOS as well. And that wraps up my presentation. That's my my email and also the Regional Connections website again. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me an email anytime. I'll do my best to answer what I can for you. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bloomfield. That was detailed, informative. Appreciate it. Before we move to questions, I'm just going to ask our CEO if there's anything you'd like to add.
Just very quickly, as you know, we are the regional district, which we are your city hall. We're here to help you. While we're not your provider for sewer and water, you are our client, you are our taxpayer. So we're here to make sure that you're treated correctly, and we're going to do the best to make sure that happens. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Zaffino. So, tough news. Are you ready to ask some questions? Does anybody have some questions you'd like to ask? Want to take a breather? Nope, somebody's coming up. If you would, please tell us your name and tell us what systems you presently use.
Stop work order for the houses not built.
Sorry, could I get your name?
Is it only a stop work order for the empty lots?
Ms. Bloomfield.
Yes, it's for the empty lots, but I don't believe people can do renovations either. There's no building permits for anyone
It's
on,
not just for the empty lots.
no, anyone on the sewer system, it's no building permits.
Okay, the re-registration, why is it 2 to 3 years?
The province has a long backlog. It takes about a year to get them even to look at the application, and then it takes about another year to finish with them. We've recently gone through it with them on an amendment to one of our operating certificates, and they've told us it even takes longer now.
But we pay for it.
Yep.
We pay for it. How many people work there?
At the province?
Well, no, for this re-registration, why is it taking
Yep.
so long?
That's the province. It's
Who do we contact for that?
It's through Walrus, I believe, the new ministry. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a specific person because they're assigned the cases as they come in.
Okay, and then when they did the water at the 2253 cubic meters per day, was that at full capita with all of the houses built? Or was that with what we use right now?
That was, which number was that again, sir?
Water, the
Yep.
2253 cubic meters per day?
Oh, yeah,
Is that for all houses built on all empty lots?
that's the licensed amount. Yes, for full build out. That's what the water licenses are. So that's the total amount that we're allowed, that the water system can take from the lake. And the calculations, when the engineer did it, the calculations at full build out are less than that, just around that number. So, which means that there's enough water license for the full build out of users.
And did Akora state which hydrants meet requirements? How many don't meet requirements?
Yeah, there is a diagram in the report itself. It actually has a little number that shows them all. It was too small for the writing, so I didn't include that one. But if you go and look at the report, you can see the actual numbers written right on top of each of the hydrants.
Okay, so we don't know how many.
I don't have that number off the top of my head. No, sorry.
What if everyone just got filtration systems on their houses instead? How much money
yeah.
does that save us? Yeah, maybe that's something we should look into. And how much are the water meters that you guys are requesting?
Typically, we've been putting them into other places. They're about 3,500 for the meter pit.
Per
And-
each house?
Yes,
Okay, so what if we
'Cause we-
say no?
we put them outside in
So what
the
if we
lot.
say no? Are we allowed to say no? Because we're paying for it. Also, quick question. The intake pipe,
Mhm.
was there no camera put down it to see the state it was in?
Not at this time, no. So we have to assume,
$150,000 report. We didn't get a camera put down that. I'm not being mean. I'm sorry. I'm just
yep, it was not
a little
included.
irritated at Akora.
It wasn't included in the scope of the work.
Okay. Maybe we should do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Next question.
I'm Andrew. I'm on the water system. Obviously, we're in this situation because of years of mismanagement. So why are we footing the bill and not the people who mismanaged the system? That's my question.
That's a tough one.
No, it's a very simple question.
Ultimately-
We did not cause this system to be in this shape, and we are going to pay for it?
You're paying for it now. You probably could have paid more over the previous years. There may have been things you might have been able to do sooner. I don't know.
Well,
But at
we
the
are not-
moment,
we
in
are
order
not
to
in
bring it
charge
into
of the system.
compliance, just a sec, I listened to you. In order to bring it into compliance, these are the costs that are required to get it there.
I understand,
Yeah.
but why are these costs, why is the person responsible or the company responsible for letting this happen? Why is there no accountability?
So, good question. That's not our role. Our role is, at the moment, we're a bystander. Okay? So you have a contractual relationship between you and the current service provider. If we come in, we would acquire that system for $1, and these are the costs we would need to upgrade it to compliance. If you wanted to recoup some of those costs, that's something you would need to look at as a separate matter. That's not going to be the RDOS doing it.
So are we looking at a class action lawsuit or what?
I can't advise you on that one.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, I'm Sean. My main question right now is if any infrastructure fails between now and whenever the RDOS takes over, who's on the foot in that bill? Are we going to get wrapped up into something that?
Okay, direct that to Ms. Bloomfield.
Yeah, if anything were to fail right now, the owner of the systems would have to look after that.
Is that the best case scenario? So we start seeing stuff fail.
Hope not.
Hope so.
Do you have a comment?
Just want to add, right now, no matter what happens, we do not have any authority. They're two private systems, and until we actually have the ownership, we can't do anything.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. We use both systems,
Sorry, could I get your name
Yes.
and what system you're on?
both systems, this is the water and sewer. And thank you for the information you have provided today. I don't know if I missed it, but I'm also interested in knowing, is there an act or legislation or a body that governs privately held utilities like this one that would help us and point us in the right direction in terms of redress for some of the challenges we're facing and the decisions we have to make?
Short answer, no. You'd have to go directly to a minister, which is what we're actually doing that on your behalf right now. We haven't got any meetings yet, but we're looking at hopeful and having some meetings with ministers just to see how much we can get help from the province.
So if I have enough money and I create a utility system and allow it to fail, there is no governing body or act or anything that would hold me accountable?
Lisa?
Yeah, right now, the sewer system, there is, the Ministry of Environment has put various fines and penalties on the failure of the system because it doesn't meet compliance right now. Fines have been applied up to March or May of 2022, but there is still 2 years of non-compliance that the province could issue more fines against the sewer system. Right now, the water system hasn't received any type of monetary fine or anything like that. That would probably be through the IHA that would initiate that.
It would be helpful to have that information sent out to all of us. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Next question.
My name is Glenn. I'm a user of both systems. In getting to this juncture, we were all informed, I believe, that there was a number of in-camera sessions held by the RDOS. Has all of the information that was discussed in those meetings been shared with us? And if not, when will it be?
Yeah, if you're talking about the information that's gone to the committee, it's the 2 reports.
Is there minutes available of those meetings for us?
Not yet, but will be in due course.
Can you put some definition to due course for me, please, sir?
Well, you've got the youngest director on the RDOS answering the questions. I'm thinking it would be after an arrangement is arrived at, but we're not going to be talking about it before then. Go ahead, Mr. Zafina.
So the director's correct, right? In that in-camera meetings, there's discussions on negotiations between us and the owner. And until that's resolved, it stays in camera. Once it's resolved, they will come into open meeting. The board will rise and report.
Thank you.
Further questions?
My name's Ben Johnson. I live on Christie Mountain. And when the developer developed that property, the estate, he paid a fee because there's a development fee, there's an engineering fee, and the RDOS comes down and there's an inspection fee, and they inspect that. And then you're telling me it didn't, we've got all these things that don't meet up to today's standard. Was that estate, did the inspectors go down and inspect it? Did he take a permit to build those houses? Was there a permit issued for the building, for the estate?
Bloomfield?
The houses themselves would have all had building permits. the water and sewer systems, because they're a private system, they would have been, it would have been IHA looking after the permit for the water system. The RDOS would not have been involved in overseeing any of the construction.
But it has to get signed off by an engineer, right?
It would have been IHA signing off on the water system.
And if it doesn't comply and an engineer signed off on it, that engineer has a bond and he has insurance to cover if it does not meet standards, correct?
As far as I know, yes, correct.
And so why are we paying for something that was not done up to a standard? And when the system was put in, did it meet the standard of the day? Or are these new standards now that you want us to meet? Because if there were old standards at the time, then we should be grandfathered into the old standards and not have to do all the upgrading to the new standards. Can you talk on that?
You can.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Sapino go first and then Ms. Bloomfield can add on.
So it's not necessarily standards, it's the equipment. So what happened 20, 30 years ago, the equipment may have been fine, but as it grows old and you saw the depreciation, it's depreciated materially, and it's a lot of that infrastructure has to be upgraded. Everything, you saw that the pumps aren't meeting the capacity, and as far as the standards go, it wouldn't have been the regional district that would have been rubber stamping it. It would have been, again, because it's private, it's the provincial government through IHA that would have looked at the sewer, and the water would have been the province. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with someone making a mistake or an engineer doing something wrong.
So the province should be held responsible for it, is that what you're saying? And talking about that, why is our federal representative and our provincial representative not at this meeting? They live in Penticton, right?
Hey, look, we're just doing the best we can here. Our commitment was we would undertake 2 third-party assessments.
Yeah.
We've done that. We're sharing it with you. You're giving us some ideas. Honestly, we haven't even got to the point yet where we would be making decisions as to whether we're going to go for, the $2 million project or the $1 million version of the same project, which might be done a little cheaper, but to a lower standard. We're not at that point yet. Right now, we've got this assessment. It's giving us an idea of the cost and the project work that is necessary. We're sharing it with you. Okay?
The water that comes into our system from the lake, I see homeless people up on Industrial. Where do they go to the toilet? Right? And then I see homeless people outside Home Hardware, right next to the streams. And where do they go to the toilet? And you're talking about cryptosporidium in the water, which is deadly. It can kill you. After this meeting, I will put an ultraviolet cleaner on my water system. How much? I think the
Okay, let's keep going with the question and then
it's
move on to the next party.
expensive. I built a water treatment plant myself once when I was younger. Cost $1 million. It was quite an elaborate water treatment system. So I don't know where you get the high costs from, but nowadays I guess everything's expensive. Water meters, I absolutely hate them. I had water meters in a house in Oliver. They came, they put a water meter in, and then you found that the neighbors down the street didn't water the grass, and the place looked terrible. Before, it looked beautiful. Everybody would water the grass. As soon as I had to pay for the water, the place looked like a dump. And I don't want that to happen in this beautiful estate that we live in.
Thanks for the questions and thanks for the comments. Other comments or questions? Actually, before we get up for, have you already asked a question? Okay, does anyone else got a question before we? All right. Okay, we're moving into the second round of questions. Carry on.
So you're still in negotiations. What happens if the RDOS does not take over the water system?
Great question. Fork in the road. At that point, you'd be looking at continuing services with your current provider or possibly trying to get the province to take over the system or possibly trying to get someone else to buy the current system. But again, RDOS is not a party to that. So those are the options. I mean, there may be more options too. I don't know.
Hi, my name's Doug, and I use the water system. I have my own sewage treatment plant. First of all, I want to thank the board members for coming out tonight and showing the level of interest they've shown in our community in Area D and in the significant problem that we face, because I'm sure other communities in the RDOS will face it in the future. And it shows what happens when you allow private sewer and water systems to serve communities without the proper oversight. And I'm sad that the MLA is not here tonight, Rolly Russell, because quite frankly, a lot of the blame has to do with the province and the lack of oversight with regard to the sewer system, which has been out of compliance for years and years and years with no consequences until finally community complained about violations and pollution and breakdowns in the system polluting the environment. The water system, a similar story. The last increase came 5 years ago. The controller of water approves increases. And in the submission to the controller of water, the owner committed that the funds were required to put in a filtration system and to upgrade the maintenance of the water system. Neither of those things has happened. When you ask the controller about that, he says, well, I don't have the authority to examine someone's private books. And so theoretically, they approve increases with no oversight, no consequences, no accountability. It's really a sad state of affairs that this province has gotten into with regard to the requirements for oversight for something so important as water. What's more important than water? Nothing I can think of. And safety of the environment, sewage treatment plants. Nothing I can think of. The complicity of the province in this failure is deafening. And I think Rolly ought to be on the stand looking for us, for the citizens, for a huge grant. I noticed, by the way, Soyuz is on the hook for about 50 million for their water treatment plant. They already have 9 million in the bank from the province and are looking for more between the federal government and the province. But again, I appreciate the board members coming out and showing their interest, hopefully their ongoing support for the issues that we face as a community and issues that others in the RDOS will face in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to make the point that, go ahead.
The previous gentleman raised the point about whether or not the RDOS should take over the water system. And I fully realize the RDOS is not directly involved in anything with regard to the history of the sewer and water system, and is only here to help us get out of the problem we're in. When the community association did a somewhat informal but pretty disciplined polling of the community about a year and a half ago,
the overwhelming majority of residents wanted the sewer and water system taken over by the RDOS. We didn't know prices and numbers at the time, but there was no doubt they wanted the private operator who has led us into this mess out of the picture.
Thank you. I just want to respond on the one point. The RDOS is amending its bylaws such that new private systems that are built to RDOS standards and are turned over to RDOS on completion of build. So. Further questions? Hi, Shai.
Again, when it came to the Vintage Views development and the increase of the water and the sewer demand, was there not, like, was the system not looked at then? And when it came to Chadwell, like all the new areas, was the systems not looked at yet again by either the province or an engineer or any of that? Like, why was this overlooked? Do we know?
I can't answer that.
Because Vintage Views is pretty new. They're looking at what, 2009? So just curious.
Yep. Okay.
When it comes to, you guys are talking to the MLAs and all that type of stuff, if we all decide to get water treatment plants in our houses, can you talk to someone to see if we can get a discount? Hey, why not? It's significant. And is there a way, if this is possible, for us to get a discount on our filters and all of that?
I'm going to make a quick comment. I can appreciate that there's probably many workarounds you could look at a specific house level. Just a second, I listened to you.
Yes.
I think you also have to look though at the value of your property long-term. If you're wanting to resell, do you want to be on a sewer and water system, or do you want to be on your own house-specific system? And before I turn it back to you, I'm going to invite our CEO for any further comments on that.
So in regards to the water filtration, you're still going to need an infrastructure to get the water to your house. And that's where the cost is. So you may have clean water once it goes through your filtration system, but how do you get the water there? You don't have any water if the infrastructure fails. And that's what we're saying.
Oh, I understand that, but there is a huge cost on the UV when it comes to like a big, massive area versus your house. The house system is pretty cheap. We've had it installed. It's amazing. But so it's immediate. It's something we can do right now, because what we're talking about is like years and years down the road. And we need something immediate because the water we're drinking right now is not good for us. It's not filtered.
I can't disagree. You'd have instant cleaner water, but you're still going to need all that capital infrastructure to keep that water flowing into your house. So you're going to have the cost that we're just saying, plus the cost of your filtration system.
Yes, I understand. It's just immediate. We're looking at something right now because as it sits right now, it looks like our pipes and stuff are pretty good for the most part. Yeah, we might need maintenance, that type of thing. But we don't know. They're saying, we're just going off of a maybe if our infiltration pipe needs work, but we don't know because it wasn't looked at. So we're just assuming, but I could assume a lot of things. It's just, would we be able to look into getting help from the MLAs or any of that for a discount for our homes? Is that something that you guys could do?
Yeah, I don't think we can speak for the province.
No, but could someone ask?
Oh, we're going to be asking a lot of questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I look, I get the anger and I get the frustration. Just think about who you're directing it to. Okay, because we're trying to dig you out.
Don't accept the anger, just ignore it.
Yep,
Because
we
it's
are.
not meant for you guys whatsoever. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get it.
I'm sure you understand, but yeah.
So here's another thing, and just in terms of the pipe and cameras and stuff like that, I mean, this is the assessment that's done now. We could add more items to it before we start making our decisions. But we drew the line where we did, and this is how much we budgeted for, and this is what we've got for it. Before we start replacing pipe, I think we're going to send a camera down and decide and see, okay, now it's, if we get to this point, if it's ours, shooting a camera down it and looking at it before we go to you and say, oh, we need you to pay for this brand new system. Okay. All right.
I do understand that if you guys do take it over, the $150,000 that was spent on the assessment will come back to us as taxpayers. Before you guys spend more of that money, is there any way we can take a vote on any additional assessments, especially like large dollar amounts?
I'll go to my CAO here.
So there's going to be
Not
a,
spending anymore.
there's going to be a public consent vote. If the deal is made where we now own both of the services, both services, you'll get back and do vote. We will tell you that what the worst case scenario is. We will always, anytime we go out to borrow funds, it's always the worst case. Because we will go aggressively after grants. We're doing that right now, even though we don't have the service. So you will know what the costs are. You just saw what we're estimating. It'll be a little bit more precise. And one of the things that will also happen is the fees would go gradually. I don't see it going boom to that. That's the worst case that you're seeing, what you're going to do in year 5, for instance. We will tell you what it is in year 1, 2, 3, right up to 5. And at year 5, it will be very close to what you just saw. Again, worst case.
Another question. When it comes to, you guys had an interest rate on there. Where are you getting the money from? Who's borrowing it to us?
So local governments can only borrow money from the Municipal Finance Authority, which is a government agency, and it's one of the lowest rates that you can get in Canada. And right now, based on those numbers, you know the interest rates are high. So if we borrow, hopefully, I'm hearing that interest rates may go down, then those numbers would go down dramatically because it's one of the highest we've seen. I believe the last I looked at it, it would be 4.29%, but that's, I see that eventually going down. We have to commit to 10 years. And then after 10 years, whatever the rate is for year 11, we automatically have to pay that amount. So we look at that also and put money aside just in case interest rates went up like they did this last few years.
So there's only one place that you guys go to?
There's only one place we can go from the Local Government Act, but that's, you go to the bank, you're not going to get a better rate. It can beat any place in Canada, the rate.
I'm just going to add to that. Don't try to compare this to rate you'd get on a car loan or a house mortgage. This is commercial paper. It's for building and development costs. You know, developers are getting, you get what, I don't know, 6% on your house mortgage. A builder has to pay 9 and 10% for his money. So when we look at this kind of infrastructure for something, I can't remember the number, it was high 4s, that's significantly less than what the private sector would, or what you would get if you were a developer building, going to a bank and getting a loan to build a water system.
Okay, I understand that. This is just health and the government's making money on us. That's something I have a problem with.
Well, I'd encourage you not to look on it like that. It's the RDOS is, we don't have the money now. Okay, so we have to borrow it somewhere. Tell me where you could get money for less than 4 3/4%.
Anywhere else? That's
By law, we're
allowed to look anywhere else.
no, we are not allowed to look elsewhere. Okay, I think we've got some more questions now, so write those one, keep writing, Sean, Shy, and we'll take more questions from you later, okay? Next question.
Hello, my name is Jill. I am a user of none of these utilities. We are one of the vacant lot owners living in Langley. We've driven up today to attend this meeting and have attended many other meetings as well. Point 26 of this report states in October 2021, the ministry informed the owner that the pollution order will be canceled once the facility has been re-registered. That process takes 1 to 2 years. Will that building permits be allowed to be granted after that re-registration of, let's say, 2 years? Because applying for building permits and the process to build will take 12 to 24 months. We'd like to have a bit of a timeline that we're paying for these utilities that we cannot access. We're paying property taxes and have gone through the assessment. They were kind to knock $50,000 off of our assessment for all vacant lot owners, not clearly enough when we cannot access any of the wonderful things that this community has to offer. So I would like to just get some clarity on this re-registration and when we could, if this does happen, see that we could actually pull a permit and start building. Thank you.
Can you try this?
I can try this. These are some of the details that we're discussing with the province right now. If we move forward, the RDOS moves forward, these are some of the answers that I'm going to make sure that we have some dates and something available for all of the homeowners. I know not being able to build on those properties is difficult and you're waiting. So those are some of the answers that we will definitely try and answer when we can bring more information out.
I think that also goes to Mike's question. Empty lot owner on Chadwell asking for a sense of what activities need to be completed before the stop work order on new builds is lifted. And I think that's basically the same question. We're working on it. And actually some interesting ideas have been floated. They'd have to be approved by the province. So, we are raising some other ideas, but it's not up to us to approve them or not. It's up to the province. I'm going to pass it over to CAO.
Just one suggestion for those empty property owners. If you haven't appealed, it's too late for this year, but in January of next year, you'll be able to appeal. Just don't accept if they reduced the amount. Actually challenge them because you have a good possibility of actually winning. And that's not uncommon to challenge an assessment and you'll be able to save taxes.
Further questions? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is John Knox. I use both services. I'm at the top of Apple Court. It seems to me that we need to get this system in very soon because it's the only way to solve the problems that everybody's facing. As a practical matter, you can't go back on the current owner and get him to fix it all up. He's not going to do anything like that now. He's only going to do things on an as-needed basis. So I think the only lever that we have to pull is to rely on you people at the front to push hard on the province for its failures and provide significant grants to keep our costs down, and to push hard on the current owner for all of his failures in causing the system to go to this point where we have to be having a meeting where we have to get it upgraded. So I'm a little bit concerned though, because you tell me that certain parts of your negotiations are going to be private. We won't be involved in those. And I get that. It has to have some form of privacy, but I hope that you will push very hard on all of those people who failed us in the past so that we have, instead of what I calculate to be a $563 increase at the current rates, that we end up with maybe only a couple $100 at most. So I ask you for that.
Thanks very much, Mr. Knox. I think you actually summarized where we see the situation as well. And I actually really appreciated your comments. Thank you. I said we had a hard stop at 8 o'clock. I'd like to respect that so that staff can get home and others can get to their dinner or whatever. We've got some chairs to put away. If anybody would like to volunteer, that'd be more than welcome. This is Okanagan Falls, so we put our chairs away. I will tell you also one announcement. The Heritage Hills Lakeshore Highland Fire Smart Committee is planning a chipping event Saturday, May the 11th, 10 till 2. Representatives from all the different organizations will be present. You're encouraged to attend. I'd like to say a couple of quick things. First, remember this is a work in progress. Actually, I think I'll just leave it with what John Knox said. I think he's kind of summarized what we're trying to accomplish here. I want to thank you for coming. And we're going to continue to consider this issue. And if we move forward, it will be with the best deal we can get. Thank you very much.